And now the other game that I've played this week is The Outer Worlds. And if you've been looking at anything Switch this week, you will know that the Outer Worlds port has been somewhat slated compared to especially last week when we were talking about how amazing Borderlands was, how amazing XCOM's looking, and how brilliant the BioShock collection on the Switch is. It seems that the Outer Worlds haven't quite managed, the porting team haven't quite managed to get it right for the Outer Worlds. And if you go on, there's a Digital Foundry comparison, where they go on and talk about the comparison between it and the Xbox One, I think it is, but they also talk about the frame rates. It's not 1080p like we'd reported last week, like lots of people had been suggesting online. It definitely isn't running anywhere near where they were hoping it would. But let me give you my thoughts on it, because I'm coming at it slightly differently. I haven't got an Xbox One. I don't have a PlayStation 4. I have a shot of one right now, but I don't have a PlayStation 4, so I'm not going to play it on those consoles. I also am more likely to play a game if I've got it handheld. So I've bought The Outer Worlds, and I've watched probably 5 video reviews and probably another 3 or 4 video comparisons comparing it with other systems. What I'll say is, my recommendation, if you don't have another system or you're not wanting to play it stuck to a TV screen, this still plays really well handheld. It is still more than good enough to play handheld. In fact, it's a miracle the way it plays handheld, because it's such an amazing game. And as a game, it is brilliant. It is genuinely such a great game. I'm about 2 hours in, and honestly, I just didn't want to put it down in the 2 hours that I've played so far. I haven't come up against any glitches yet. There hasn't been any real issues. Frame rate's been steady. I would say it feels like it's 30 frames per second throughout. Haven't had any of that issues. One thing I've noticed is some sort of distance sort of drawing and some shadowing and some pop-ins occasionally in the distance, but it's in the distance and I have to really be looking at it to notice it. It doesn't bother me, and also because I've not played it on another system, I'm not comparing it. Watching the comparison videos, there is a big difference. I will say for me, I'm not seeing the difference that a lot of people are, but I think part of that is probably because I'm colorblind and I probably don't notice the difference anyway. But it's definitely not. If you want to play the maxed out, the best version, PC is the way to go. If you want to play something that is a great solid version of it, PS4 or Xbox One, if you want to play it handheld and it's still the same game, but you've got to realize that it's not quite as brilliant graphically as those, and the frame rate does suffer, the Switch version handheld is great. What I would not recommend, from what I've watched and what I've seen so far, is you buy it on the Switch if you're planning to only play it on the television. I would say that this is much like The Witcher. I would say this is for handheld. It's for the handheld experience. Don't play it if you're going to try and do it on a television, because that's where you really notice the difference. Anton, I know you've got the PC version, so you're probably the best person to talk to about it.
Yeah, it's it's a real shame where I'd played the PC version and I fell in love with the game. I was like, this is a game I want to play on the go. I think RPGs work better. And then seeing the Switch port, it's kind of turned me off of very much. How have you found it? Because personally for me, I was, I could swallow the pill of having the graphical downgrades. Like, the story, the characters, the choices are still there. But I've seen in some comparisons, it's got the pop-in with enemies. Have you encountered that, or is that kind of a rare occurrence?
No. From what I've done a lot of research on this week, from what I can see, it seems to be later in the game that it seems that these problems become more apparent. And certainly if you're playing it on a television, I think it's definitely noticeable. I'll tell you, and I would never recommend necessarily going and looking at a review from another Nintendo type review place, but I will say, if you want the best review in terms of handheld, go to nintendolife.com and watch their video review on YouTube. And the reason I say that is that it's quite interesting, because the video review is done by one of their main video guys, but he didn't actually write the review, and at the end he adds a little extra bit right after the review. He goes, I just want to say I had a very different experience of this game than the review I've just given you, because I didn't write that review, and I added in some of my own things into the review, but my experience was that I didn't have a great experience, and I was having these graphical pop-in issues. And what he said was that he thinks the difference is he played it on a television, whereas the person that did the review played it all handheld. And I think that is the key to it here. I think if you play this handheld, I honestly don't. There's nothing in it that's bothering me right now. In fact, it hasn't even occurred to me. Like Rocket League bothered me more,
really,
because I played Rocket League on the PlayStation 4, and now I love Rocket League on the Switch. I wouldn't play it anywhere else because I just love it. But at the start, I did notice the difference. There was a definite drop. But for this, it's brilliant. If you are going to play this handheld, and that was always your aim, and you're not bothered about trying to compete with a PC or an Xbox One, the game is stunning. And it looks stunning on the Switch. I don't think the game is the most beautiful game in the world anyway. I don't think as its original game, it is unbelievable. I think there's some amazing uses of textures and some of the techniques they use are amazing, but I don't think it's the most stunning game I've ever seen. But I think it's more than playable. If you want to pick it up, I would play it handheld. That is my recommendation.
Yeah, and
I saw there was a bit of chat about potentially patching it. Is that likely on the cards? Has anybody heard?
There's been a day one patch, and the day one patch did make improvements. It did make some fairly big improvements, but not enough that it's changing the views of the likes of Digital Foundry, who tend to be very ultra critical on these things. They also did the BioShock review of the technical, how that was running on the Switch, and they gave it a really great review. Said, yeah, this is actually working really well. It feels like, the claim, is it Virtuous, isn't it?
Virtuous, yes.
Yeah, they've claimed that they can port anything to the Switch, and I believe them. It's just, do we want to play it in 180p and with standard definition? I don't know, but that's how it feels with Outer Worlds. I think if you were to play it on a big TV, I would say if you're playing it handheld, to be honest, I don't know what else you would want from it. You could probably improve it graphically, I'm sure, but because I've never played it on another system, I've nothing to compare it to, and therefore, to me, it looks amazing. So,
yeah, I would just say definitely don't look at another version, because I think I've been doing 5K ultra settings, and it's interesting where graphics does change the narrative you view on the world. Where it's for instance, at the beginning of the game, there's a botanical garden. Excuse me. And having played the game on PC, it kind of gives you the vibe of, nature's overgrowing society again. It's very luscious. Where on the Switch, it's it's very Fallout-y, it's barren.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there are
a whole new world.
There's a definite different feel to it. I have looked at a lot of comparison videos this week. I have looked at, ones which are running the same point in the game on the Xbox One and the Switch. And I know I'm quite blind when it comes to colors, but I'm watching the two of them, and I find it really hard to tell why it looks so bad. I know that, that's probably me. So in handheld, obviously everything's much smaller anyway. I don't think I'm really noticing that, but I think if I was to play it on a screen, I know I would definitely notice it then. But no, for me, handheld certainly is not. It's not a bad game to play. Put it that way. It doesn't feel wrong to play. But I won't play the 5K version anytime soon, because then I'll throw my Switch in the bin.
Clear message. Handheld, good. Anything else? Nah, buy another platform. Done.
Yeah, I would agree.